Keanu Reeves sacrifices his life to save child from falling building. The world around Keanu seemed to blur as chaos erupted in the heart of the city. Sirens wailed in the distance, and thick black smoke filled the air, coming from the massive building that was slowly being devoured by flames. The sounds of shouting, desperate voices, and the occasional crash of falling debris filled the streets below. A thick crowd had gathered, watching the disaster unfold in horror. But for Keanu, there was only one thing on his mind: the child. From the moment he had seen the little boy standing on the edge of the crumbling building, his heart had stopped. The boy was just a few floors up, hanging onto the side of the building as the fire spread rapidly. Keanu's heart raced as he scanned the surrounding area for any possible way to reach the child. He had been in the wrong place at the wrong time, or maybe it was fate, he thought as he sprinted toward the building. He had just been walking down the street when he heard the screams and saw the smoke rising into the sky. His instincts kicked in, and without a second thought, he had run toward the scene. And that's when he saw the child, a small boy in a yellow shirt, clinging to the side of the building, helpless and terrified. Keanu's body was already in motion. His feet were pounding against the concrete, his breath coming in quick, ragged bursts. He didn't have much time. Every second counted. The fire was closing in on the building, and the structure was weakening by the minute. Keanu had to act fast, or the child would be lost. He didn't even stop to think. Keanu reached the building's entrance and dashed inside, his mind racing. The walls were singed, and the heat was overwhelming. He covered his mouth with his sleeve to shield himself from the smoke as he bolted up the stairs, taking them 2 or 3 at a time. His legs burned, but he pushed through the exhaustion, driven only by the image of the child's terrified face. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Keanu reached the floor where the boy was. Smoke poured from every corner, and the heat was suffocating. He rushed down the narrow hallway, his hands pushing against the walls for support. His heart was in his throat. He had to find the child, he had to save him. And then he saw him. The boy was hanging from a broken window frame, his tiny body trembling with fear. His grip was slipping, and it was clear that he wasn't going to hold on for much longer. "Hey!" Keanu shouted, his voice hoarse with desperation. "Grab onto me." The boy looked down, his eyes wide with fear. He seemed to hesitate for a moment, unsure of whether to trust the stranger. But Keanu didn't have time for hesitation. He reached out, stretching his arm toward the boy. "Please, just grab my hand." Keanu yelled again, his voice strained as he fought to stay calm. The boy's eyes flickered between Keanu and the growing flames behind him. It was a split-second decision, but it was the only one the boy could make. He lunged toward Keanu, his tiny fingers brushing against the man's arm. Keanu grabbed the boy, his strong arms wrapping around him as he pulled him toward safety. But as he did, the building groaned under the pressure, and the floor beneath their feet seemed to give way. Keanu's heart skipped a beat as he felt the floor give out beneath them. He acted quickly, using every ounce of strength in his body to hold the boy close as they both stumbled backward toward the door. The fire roared behind them, and the building creaked ominously, threatening to collapse at any moment. Keanu's adrenaline was the only thing keeping him moving now. He sprinted down the hallway, the boy still in his arms, his eyes fixed forward. He could hear the flames creeping closer. The heat was unbearable, and smoke filled the air, making it hard to breathe. But Keanu didn't stop. He couldn't. They were almost there, just a few more steps, and they'd be out of the building. But that's when the ceiling above them gave way. A massive piece of debris fell, crashing down between Keanu and the exit. Without hesitation, Keanu pushed the boy away from the danger, his body reacting on instinct. The boy tumbled to the ground, but Keanu's body was hit by the debris, sending him crashing to the floor. Pain exploded in his chest as he struggled to breathe, the weight of the rubble pinning him down. For a moment, he couldn't move. His lungs screamed for air, and he could hear the boy's cries from the other side of the wreckage. Keanu's heart broke at the sound, knowing that the child was scared and alone, but he couldn't help him yet. He had to get out from under the debris. With a groan, Keanu pushed against the rubble, using every last ounce of strength in his body. His vision blurred from the pain, but he couldn't give up now. not when the boy was depending on him. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he managed to pull himself free, dragging himself toward the boy. He reached out, his arms trembling as he pulled the child to safety. But just as Keanu was about to get them both out of the building, the ground beneath them gave way once more. The entire structure began to collapse, and the walls shook violently. "Run!" Keanu shouted, his voice hoarse from the smoke and exhaustion. "Get to the door!" The boy, still terrified, grabbed Keanu's hand, and together, they ran for the exit. The building was crumbling around them, the sound of falling debris echoing in their ears. They were almost there. They could see the light of the outside world through the doorway. But just as they reached the threshold, a large piece of debris fell from above, trapping Keanu under its weight. The boy screamed, but Keanu forced himself to smile through the pain, his eyes locking with the boy's. "Go," Keanu whispered, his voice barely audible. "Get out of here." The boy hesitated, his small face filled with confusion and fear. But Keanu's eyes were firm, and he could see the determination in the man's gaze. With a final look, the boy turned and ran out of the building, his small legs carrying him to safety. As Keanu lay there, the flames closing in, he knew that he had done everything he could. He had saved the boy, given him a chance at life. And though his own fate seemed sealed, Keanu felt a peace settle over him. He had made a difference. The building collapsed in a violent burst of flames, and the world around him faded to black. The next morning, news reports flooded in about the heroic rescue. The child, safe and sound, had been taken to the hospital for a checkup, and the city mourned the loss of the brave man who had given his life to save him. Keanu Reeves was remembered not only for his dedication to others, but for his selflessness, for his willingness to sacrifice everything in the name of doing what was right. The story spread, a symbol of hope, courage, and the power of compassion. And for the boy Keanu had saved, it was a day he would never forget, the day he was given a second chance at life. The city was still reeling from the tragedy, but there was a sense of unity and pride that had emerged from the ashes of destruction. Keanu Reeves' heroic act of bravery had become the talk of the town, and his selflessness was being celebrated by everyone who had witnessed his sacrifice. The news stories painted a picture of the man who had not only been a hero in action but also in spirit. He had saved a child, risked everything without hesitation, and in doing so, had left an indelible mark on everyone's hearts. The boy, whose name was Liam, was recovering in the hospital. Though physically unscathed by the fire, the emotional toll was evident in the way he clung to the small stuffed animal he'd brought with him. He hadn't fully processed the tragedy, but the staff at the hospital were working with him, doing everything they could to provide comfort and support. He had lost his parents in the fire. They were both inside the building when it collapsed. It was a devastating blow, but Liam's survival, thanks to Keanu, had become the focal point of the community's strength. The day after the fire, the community gathered for a memorial service to honor the lives lost and the hero who had given everything to save a child. The church was filled with people, family, friends, first responders, and even strangers who had been moved by the tragedy. The city's mayor spoke, praising Keanu's courage, while the local media ran stories highlighting the selflessness of his actions. But there was one moment that stood out amidst the somber ceremony. Liam, despite the grief he was carrying, stood in front of the gathered crowd, holding the stuffed animal that Keanu had helped him cling to in the building. The boy had something to say. "I don't remember much," Liam's voice cracked as he spoke, looking down at the stuffed animal in his hands. "But I remember that man. He wasn't scared. He kept telling me to hold on. He saved my life. I don't know how to thank him, but I know he didn't have to save me. He did it because he wanted to." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. The entire congregation sat in stunned silence, reflecting on the gravity of what Liam had said. He had known Keanu for only a brief moment, but the impact of that moment would stay with him for the rest of his life. And while Keanu's name would be forever etched in the city's history as the man who gave his life to save a child, it was Liam who would carry the weight of that legacy. His words, despite the pain in his heart, had captured the essence of what Keanu had done: selflessness in the face of unimaginable odds. The weeks following the memorial service were a blur of emotions and remembrance. Keanu Reeves had become a symbol, a hero in the truest sense. But as much as people revered him for his bravery, his story was just beginning to ripple out into the world. The news coverage, the interviews, the stories about him in the papers, they spread far beyond the borders of the city, reaching the ears of people who didn't know his face but were deeply moved by his actions. Keanu's family was in shock, of course, but they were also filled with a sense of pride for the man he had become. Keanu's younger brother, David, who had always been Keanu's closest confidant, reflected on his siblings' journey during an emotional interview with a local news station. Keanu was always the one who stood up for others, David said, his voice trembling with emotion. When we were kids, he was the protector, the one who never hesitated to step in when someone needed help. I guess that part of him never changed. David's words were echoed by countless others who had known Keanu throughout his life. Those who had worked alongside him, trained with him, or even shared moments of laughter with him, all spoke of the man who had never sought attention or recognition but had always acted out of kindness. But Keanu's legacy wasn't just defined by the life he saved, it was also about the ripple effect of his actions. People from all walks of life, inspired by his bravery, began stepping forward, volunteering to help rebuild the neighborhood and support the victims of the fire. They were donating, organizing fundraisers, and offering their time to rebuild what had been lost. Keanu's act had sparked a wave of kindness that rippled through the entire community. For Liam, the journey to healing was long. He had lost his parents in the fire, and while the city had embraced him with open arms, he struggled with grief and fear. It wasn't just about the loss of his parents, it was the trauma of that night, the uncertainty of the world around him. But something had changed in Liam after the memorial service. In the weeks that followed, he began to attend therapy, slowly learning to process the grief he carried. The staff at the hospital and local counselors worked with him, encouraging him to express his emotions, to understand that it wasn't his fault, that he was loved and supported by so many people. Liam's connection to Keanu, however brief, became a guiding light for him. It was the memory of the man who had not hesitated to jump into a dangerous situation, a man who had seen Liam as a life worth saving. That memory became Liam's anchor, something he could hold on to whenever the weight of loss felt too heavy. In time, Liam began attending school again. His teachers, knowing his story, did everything they could to make him feel comfortable, to allow him the time he needed to adjust. But Liam wasn't just moving forward for himself, he was moving forward for Keanu. He would carry the man's memory with him every day, using it as inspiration to live fully, to embrace every moment of life. On his first day back at school, Liam wore the same yellow shirt he had been wearing the day of the fire. It was a small gesture, but one that felt meaningful. It was as if, in wearing that shirt, he could remember the man who had helped him. The school principal made a public announcement, acknowledging Keanu's bravery and honoring his legacy. The school decided to dedicate an entire section of the library to Keanu, where students could read books about courage, selflessness, and heroism. And at the front of the library, there was a plaque in honor of Keanu Reeves, the man who had sacrificed his life for someone else. Liam, now starting to come into his own, visited the library often, sitting by the plaque and remembering the day he was saved. He never forgot the man who had pulled him from the fire, the man who had made the ultimate sacrifice so that he could have a chance to grow up. While Liam's healing was personal, the city's recovery was collective. The fire had destroyed an entire block, and the people who had lived and worked there were devastated. But the outpouring of support was immense. Donations poured in from across the country. Volunteers arrived from all corners of the city, offering their help in rebuilding what had been lost. The spirit of community, the very thing Keanu had fought to preserve in those final moments, was evident in the way the city came together. In the months that followed, the building was slowly rebuilt, and new housing was constructed for those who had lost everything. The city offered mental health services for those impacted by the fire, ensuring that no one had to face the aftermath alone. And through it all, Keanu's legacy remained at the heart of everything. It wasn't just the hero who had died to save a child, it was the values he had lived by that continued to inspire everyone. A year later, the city held a memorial event in Keanu's honor. The streets surrounding the rebuilt area were lined with candles, and thousands gathered to remember the man who had sacrificed so much. Liam, now a bit older and stronger, stood with his aunt and uncle at the front of the crowd. He wore a new yellow shirt, this one bright and fresh, as if signaling that he was beginning to heal. As the event drew to a close, the mayor gave a speech that left the crowd in tears. Keanu Reeves wasn't just a hero in that moment. He was a hero every day of his life. His legacy lives on in all of us, in the way we treat each other, in the kindness we show, and in the sacrifices we make for those we love. Keanu showed us all that sometimes the greatest thing we can do is put someone else's life before our own. And in doing so, he made the world a better place. Liam, standing in the crowd, felt a sense of peace wash over him. He had survived, and he had been given the chance to live a life that mattered, thanks to Keanu's sacrifice. And that was a gift he would never take for granted. The city was still recovering, both physically and emotionally. It had been months since the fire, and while the buildings were slowly being rebuilt, the wounds left by the tragedy lingered. People went on with their lives, but they were forever changed. The events that unfolded that day had left an indelible mark on the hearts and minds of the people who lived there. For Liam, life had been a series of adjustments. He had moved in with his aunt and uncle, who had done everything they could to provide him with love and support. Despite the loss of his parents, Liam had found comfort in the family that remained. It wasn't easy, but with time, he had come to realize that he wasn't alone. The city had rallied around him, offering condolences, support, and encouragement. But the most important lesson Liam had learned came from a man he barely knew, Keanu Reeves. The man who had saved his life had left behind not just a memory, but a legacy. Every day, Liam carried Keanu's spirit with him. The lessons of selflessness, courage, and resilience were now embedded in the young boy's heart. And with each passing day, Liam became more determined to live a life that honored Keanu's sacrifice. It was a quiet afternoon when Liam stood in front of the memorial plaque at the rebuilt community center. The plaque, a simple but elegant tribute to Keanu, was located in the center of the new park that had been constructed where the fire had ravaged the neighborhood. The city had decided to create a place of healing, a place where people could gather to remember and find solace. The plaque was there to ensure that Keanu's bravery would never be forgotten. Liam stood alone for a moment, his small fingers tracing the engraved letters. Keanu Reeves, a hero who sacrificed everything to save a life. The words seemed almost too simple to capture the magnitude of what Keanu had done. He glanced around the park, his eyes lingering on the new playground where children laughed and played. The park had become a symbol of resilience, a testament to how the community had come together in the wake of the tragedy. But it was also a place of remembrance, a place where Keanu's actions would never be forgotten. "Hey, Liam," a familiar voice called from behind. Liam turned to see his aunt, Megan, walking toward him. She was smiling gently, but there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. Megan had been his rock through everything, offering him a sense of stability when the world seemed to be falling apart. "Are you okay?" Megan asked, stepping beside him. Liam nodded, though the weight of his emotions was clear in his eyes. "I'm good. Just thinking about, everything. About Keanu." Megan smiled softly, her hand resting on his shoulder. "I know. He's always going to be a part of your story, Liam. And what he did for you, it's something we'll always remember." Liam's gaze lingered on the plaque for a moment longer before he spoke again. "I want to make him proud," he said quietly, his voice filled with determination. "I want to live my life the way he would have wanted." Megan looked at him, her eyes filled with love and understanding. "You already are, Liam. You're stronger than you know. And Keanu would be so proud of you too." The next few weeks brought new challenges. Liam had started school again, his first day back filled with mixed emotions. It wasn't easy to walk into a classroom without his parents, but he was learning to navigate the world in a way that honored them both. His classmates had welcomed him back with open arms, offering support and understanding, and for the first time in a long while, Liam felt like he wasn't alone. But there was still a part of him that felt disconnected. It wasn't just about losing his parents, it was about the trauma of that day, the images of the fire that haunted his dreams. The fear of what had happened, the uncertainty of the future, still weighed heavily on him. But every time he thought about Keanu, about the man who had risked his life for him, something inside him shifted. It wasn't just the memory of what Keanu had done, it was the example he had set. Liam decided that he would do something meaningful, something that would honor Keanu's legacy. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was the right thing to do. He started by visiting the community center again, where the memorial plaque stood. He had been there countless times, but this time, he had a plan. He was going to talk to the city council about creating a scholarship in Keanu's name. A scholarship for kids who had lost everything, kids who needed a chance to build a better future. The idea had been brewing in Liam's mind for weeks, and now he was ready to take action. The meeting with the council was scheduled for the following week. Liam had worked hard on his presentation, gathering ideas and stories from other community members who had been inspired by Keanu's actions. When the day finally came, Liam felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. This was his chance to give back, to ensure that Keanu's name would continue to make a difference long after the memorials had faded. He stood at the front of the room, his hands trembling slightly as he spoke to the council members. "I'm here to propose a scholarship fund," Liam began, his voice steady despite the nerves. "A scholarship in honor of Keanu Reeves. He saved my life, and I know I'm not the only one he inspired. I want to make sure that his legacy lives on, not just through stories, but through action." Liam's words resonated with the council. One by one, the members nodded in approval, recognizing the power of what Liam was proposing. This wasn't just about remembering a hero, it was about taking that hero's spirit and using it to create something lasting. Something that would benefit future generations. After a brief discussion, the council unanimously agreed to establish the scholarship. The fund would be used to provide educational opportunities to children who had experienced trauma or hardship, children like Liam, who had lost their parents and needed support to pursue their dreams. Liam left the meeting that day with a sense of accomplishment. He had done it. He had taken the first step in turning Keanu's legacy into something tangible, something that could make a real difference in the lives of others. As the months passed, the scholarship began to grow. Local businesses, schools, and community members all contributed, eager to support the cause and keep Keanu's memory alive. The fund was used to provide financial assistance to students, allowing them to pursue higher education and achieve their goals. Liam, now a little older and more confident, began working as a mentor for the younger kids in the neighborhood, sharing his story and encouraging others to believe in their own potential. The city, though scarred by the tragedy, had found a way to move forward, just as Liam had. The park, once the site of devastation, had become a symbol of recovery, and Keanu's name was spoken with reverence by everyone who passed by. People continued to come together, not just to remember the tragedy, but to honor the spirit of the man who had saved a life, a man whose selflessness had inspired so many. And in the quiet moments, when Liam stood in front of the plaque or visited the park, he knew that Keanu's legacy was not just about the life he had saved. It was about the lives that would be touched in the years to come. The children who would have the chance to dream because of Keanu's sacrifice. Liam sat at his desk, staring out the window. The world outside was bustling, full of people coming and going, cars speeding past, and the sun casting its warm glow over the city. Yet inside, Liam was still processing the momentous decision he had made. The scholarship he had proposed in honor of Keanu was starting to take shape, and the fund was already helping children from difficult backgrounds find their path forward. But for Liam, it wasn't just about giving back. It was about creating a future where the lessons he had learned from Keanu would continue to resonate. He had always felt a deep connection to Keanu, not just because the man had saved his life, but because of the quiet strength and bravery Keanu had shown in those final moments. Keanu had given everything for a stranger, and in doing so, had shown Liam what it meant to be truly selfless. It was a lesson Liam would carry with him for the rest of his life. And now, with the scholarship fund beginning to take hold, it felt like Keanu's legacy was alive, woven into the fabric of the community. But Liam's journey wasn't just about remembering Keanu, it was about using his own strength to build something greater, to reach others in the same way Keanu had reached him. One morning, as Liam prepared to leave for school, he was met by his Aunt Megan, who had a bright smile on her face. She handed him a letter, its envelope decorated with an elegant logo. "What's this?" Liam asked, his curiosity piqued. It's a letter from the city council, Megan explained. They've been working on something special for you. Open it up. Liam eagerly tore open the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. His eyes scanned the words, and the weight of what he was reading slowly began to sink in. The letter informed him that the scholarship fund he had proposed in honor of Keanu was being expanded into a citywide program. The mayor and the council had decided to formally name the scholarship the Keanu Reeves Memorial Scholarship Fund, and they were planning a large ceremony to announce the program and its first recipients. For a moment, Liam couldn't speak. He had always dreamed of making a difference, but this was beyond anything he had ever imagined. It wasn't just a small project anymore. It was a movement that would continue to grow, impacting countless lives. We did it, Liam whispered, a smile spreading across his face. Keanu's legacy, it's more than just a memory now. It's going to change everything. Megan hugged him tightly, proud of everything he had accomplished. I'm so proud of you, Liam. You've turned pain into purpose, and you're making a real difference in this world. Liam nodded, feeling a sense of pride he had never known before. He was starting to understand what it meant to build something that could last, to carry forward a legacy that wasn't just about the past, but about creating a better future for others. As the weeks passed, preparations for the ceremony began in full swing. The community rallied behind Liam and the scholarship fund, eager to celebrate not just Keanu's life, but the positive change that was taking place. Schools, businesses, and local organizations all contributed to the program, ensuring that more children would have access to educational opportunities they might have never had otherwise. The night before the ceremony, Liam sat at his desk, reviewing the speech he had written. It wasn't easy to put his feelings into words, but he knew he had to try. Keanu's impact on his life, and on the lives of others, had been profound. He had to honor that. He took a deep breath, reading over the speech one last time. Keanu Reeves wasn't just a hero because of the way he died. He was a hero because of the way he lived. He showed us all that even in the darkest of times, we can make a difference. He didn't hesitate when he saw someone in need. And because of his sacrifice, I'm here today, standing in front of all of you, sharing this story. The story of a man who believed that one act of kindness could change the world. And today, we carry that belief forward. Liam paused for a moment, the weight of his words settling in. Tomorrow he would stand before a crowd and speak not just about Keanu's legacy, but about his own journey. It wasn't just about a hero's sacrifice. It was about how that sacrifice had lit a fire in others. How it had inspired Liam to become the person he was today. The day of the ceremony arrived, and the park was buzzing with activity. A large stage had been set up near the memorial plaque, and people from all over the city were arriving to celebrate the launch of the Keanu Reeves Memorial Scholarship Fund. Families, community leaders, and supporters gathered in the park, filling the air with excitement and anticipation. Liam stood backstage, dressed in his best suit, trying to calm his nerves. His Aunt Megan stood beside him, offering a comforting smile. "You've got this, Liam," she said softly. "Just speak from the heart. Everyone is here to celebrate you and Keanu." Liam nodded, but the butterflies in his stomach wouldn't stop fluttering. He had spoken in front of people before, but this was different. This was about honoring a legacy, about giving voice to the memory of a man who had changed his life forever. The event began with speeches from the mayor and various community leaders, all praising Keanu's bravery and highlighting the importance of the scholarship fund. The crowd listened attentively, their faces lit by the glow of gratitude and remembrance. Then it was Liam's turn. He walked to the podium, his heart pounding in his chest. The crowd fell silent as he began to speak. "Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today to honor my friend, Keanu Reeves. I don't think any of us will ever forget what he did for me. But it's not just about me. Keanu's actions were about something bigger, something that affects all of us. He showed us that one person can make a difference. One act of kindness can change the course of someone's life. And that's what we're here to celebrate today." Liam paused, looking out at the crowd. He could see the faces of those who had supported him, the faces of those who had helped make this scholarship possible. And he knew that Keanu's spirit lived on in all of them. The Keanu Reeves Memorial Scholarship Fund is more than just a way to remember him. It's a way for all of us to make sure that his legacy continues. It's a way for us to give kids like me the chance to succeed, the chance to have a better future. And that's something Keanu would have wanted. To know that even after he's gone, he's still changing lives. And for that, I am eternally grateful. Liam's voice cracked with emotion, but he steadied himself. This was his moment, his chance to give back, to make sure Keanu's memory would never fade. I hope that every child who receives this scholarship remembers that they are capable of great things. I hope they remember that kindness, courage, and love are the things that make us strong. And I hope they remember that even in the darkest of times, we have the power to create light. The crowd erupted into applause, and Liam felt a rush of emotion. The scholarship was more than just a name on a plaque. It was a promise. A promise to continue Keanu's work, to keep his spirit alive in every life it touched. The crowd's applause faded as Liam stepped away from the podium, his heart still pounding in his chest. He had done it. He had honored Keanu, and he had given voice to a legacy that was far bigger than himself. But as he made his way back to his seat beside Megan, a quiet calm washed over him. This wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. The Keanu Reeves Memorial Scholarship Fund was officially launched, and the first recipients were already being selected. Over the next few months, the scholarship would help dozens of children who had faced unimaginable challenges in their young lives. Liam's dream had become a reality, and it was spreading, growing into something far more impactful than he could have ever imagined. Liam sat in the audience, looking around at the faces of those who had come to support him. They weren't just there to honor Keanu, they were there to celebrate hope and change. The scholarships were more than just financial aid, they were a symbol of the good that could come from tragedy. And in that moment, Liam realized that this was what Keanu had wanted, for the ripple of kindness and courage to extend far beyond that one moment in the fire. A few weeks after the ceremony, the scholarship committee sent Liam an update about the first round of recipients. There were dozens of applicants, and each story was more heartbreaking than the last. But what struck Liam the most were the letters written by the kids who had applied. They weren't just seeking a handout, they were reaching out for the chance to make something of themselves, to turn their lives around. They were all in need of hope, and the scholarship was offering them a chance to believe in their futures. One letter, in particular, stood out to him. It was from a young girl named Emma, a high school senior who had lost both of her parents to a car accident the previous year. She had been living with her aunt and uncle ever since, struggling to keep up with her studies while also helping to take care of her younger siblings. Emma wrote about her dreams of becoming a social worker, someone who could help other kids in foster care find their way, just as she had been guided through her own grief. Emma had written that Keanu's story inspired her to keep pushing forward. She had seen the news about the fire and the hero who had saved Liam's life, and she had been touched by the story. Keanu's selflessness had reminded her that there was still good in the world, and that even in the darkest times, there were people who would rise up to help others. Reading her letter brought tears to Liam's eyes. He could feel Keanu's presence in every word, in the hope and strength that Emma drew from her own pain. This scholarship wasn't just changing lives. It was offering people like Emma the chance to pay forward the kindness that had been shown to them. That evening, after reading Emma's letter, Liam sat down with Megan to discuss how they could help spread the word about the scholarship. Megan had always been his rock, the one who had been there when he lost his parents, and the one who had stood by him through all the ups and downs. She had been his biggest supporter throughout the entire process, always encouraging him to keep moving forward. "Mom would be so proud of you," Megan said softly, her voice tinged with emotion. "What you've done, what you've built, it's incredible." Liam nodded, the weight of her words sinking in. It hadn't been easy to get to this point. There had been days when he doubted himself, when he wasn't sure if he could live up to Keanu's legacy. But now, with the scholarship taking off and real change happening in the community, Liam felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond anything he had ever imagined. "I just wish they were here to see this," Liam said, his voice cracking. "I wish they could see how much Keanu's life mattered." Megan reached out and placed a hand on his. "They're with you, Liam. They always will be. And Keanu's spirit is with us, too. You're carrying his light forward." Liam smiled, feeling comforted by her words. He knew that he couldn't change the past, but he could shape the future. And through this scholarship, he was giving others the opportunity to do the same. As the months passed, more and more children benefited from the scholarship. The city began to see a transformation, a renewed sense of hope and unity. The money raised from the community and local businesses had helped fund educational programs, after-school activities, and mentorship opportunities for kids who had faced hardship. The scholarship wasn't just about paying for tuition, it was about building a future. Liam continued to mentor some of the scholarship recipients, guiding them as they navigated the challenges of school and life. It wasn't always easy, but he felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility to help them in any way he could. He remembered what it felt like to be lost, to feel like he had no way out. And now, he had the opportunity to provide others with the tools to succeed. One day, Liam met with Emma at a local coffee shop. She had just been awarded the scholarship and was preparing for her first semester of college. The excitement in her eyes was palpable as she spoke about her plans for the future. "I never thought I'd be able to go to college," Emma said, her voice filled with wonder. "I always thought it was just a dream, something I could never afford. But now, because of this scholarship, I'm going to be able to do it. I'm going to be able to help other kids, just like I've been helped." Liam smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride. "You're going to do great things, Emma. I know it. And you're already making a difference by pursuing your dream." Emma's eyes welled up with tears, but she smiled. "Thank you, Liam. Thank you for believing in me. For believing in all of us." Liam reached out and squeezed her hand, his heart full. "It's not just me. It's all of us. We're all in this together." And Keanu's legacy, his belief in others, will always be part of what drives us forward. In the following years, the Keanu Reeves Memorial Scholarship Fund continued to grow. The city had created a foundation that helped fund educational opportunities for hundreds of children. The scholarship became a hallmark of what the community stood for: compassion, selflessness, and hope. Each year, more students applied for the scholarship, and more lives were changed. Liam, now in his early 20s, continued to manage the scholarship with Megan's help, ensuring that Keanu's legacy would never fade. He had learned that the road to making a difference wasn't always smooth, but with determination and the support of others, it was possible to create lasting change. One day, Liam stood in front of the new community center that had been built in honor of Keanu. The building was bustling with activity, kids were coming and going, and the atmosphere was filled with laughter and energy. The walls were adorned with photos of Keanu, along with inspiring messages from the people whose lives had been touched by his sacrifice. As Liam looked around the space, he felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. This was Keanu's gift, a gift that had continued to give long after his passing. Liam placed his hand on the plaque in the center of the room, a small tribute to the man who had given him the courage to dream big. The plaque read, "In memory of Keanu Reeves, whose selflessness and courage changed lives forever." And as Liam stood there, surrounded by the community that had supported him, he realized that Keanu's legacy wasn't just in the lives of those who had been directly impacted. It was in the ripple effect that continued to spread outward, touching countless people, one act of kindness at a time. The years passed quickly, and with each passing day, Liam grew more determined to ensure that the scholarship would continue to thrive, long after Keanu's name had become a distant memory for some. Despite the inevitable challenges that came with managing a growing initiative, Liam never wavered in his commitment to keeping Keanu's spirit alive. He spent countless hours working with the scholarship committee, reviewing applications, and connecting with mentors who could guide the recipients on their journeys. His days were busy, but they were also filled with purpose. The young boy who had once lost everything was now becoming a man who was giving back, not just with words, but with actions. One evening, after a long day of meetings and phone calls, Liam sat down at his desk, reviewing the progress of the scholarship fund. There were more applicants than ever before, and the fund had expanded to include educational resources for children who had been affected by natural disasters and other forms of trauma. The scope of the scholarship had grown beyond what Liam had ever imagined, and yet, it felt just as important as the day he had stood in front of the council, proposing the idea in the first place. But there was always a nagging feeling in the back of his mind, the sense that he was still not doing enough. The world, after all, was still full of pain and suffering. There were still children out there who needed help, who needed someone to believe in them. And as much as the scholarship had done, Liam knew that it was just a small piece of the puzzle. He leaned back in his chair, looking out the window of his office. The city had changed over the years, but there were still areas struggling, still people fighting to survive. He couldn't help but wonder how many more lives could be transformed if they had the same opportunities that the scholarship had provided. Maybe it's time to think bigger, he said to himself quietly, as if the thought had just crossed his mind. What if the scholarship could expand even more? What if they could offer not just education, but mentorship and job placement services? What if the fund could help kids find careers that would change their lives forever? Liam's thoughts swirled with possibilities. The idea of expanding the fund to offer real, hands-on opportunities for kids to learn trades, skills, and gain professional experience seemed more important than ever. He knew that education alone wasn't always enough. The world was evolving, and young people needed more than just classroom knowledge. They needed practical experience, mentorship, and guidance to navigate the rapidly changing world. The next few weeks were filled with meetings, brainstorming sessions, and late nights spent creating a blueprint for the expanded scholarship fund. Liam reached out to local businesses, educational institutions, and vocational training centers, hoping to form partnerships that could benefit the next generation of students. His vision was clear. The scholarship would no longer just provide financial support. It would offer real-world tools, mentorship, and career opportunities to ensure that young people weren't just educated, they were prepared for the future. As the plan began to take shape, Liam was filled with excitement. He couldn't wait to see the next chapter of the scholarship unfold. But there were still many obstacles to overcome, chief among them, securing the funding to make this ambitious expansion a reality. Liam knew that the next step would be one of the hardest yet. He had built the scholarship from the ground up, but now it was time to take it to a whole new level. He needed the support of the city, the businesses, and the community to bring his vision to life. He sat down with Megan, as he had so many times before, and explained his plan. I want to take the scholarship to the next level. I want it to be more than just a handout. I want it to be a pathway to success, a way for kids to build careers and find purpose. But to do that, we need more than just money. We need partnerships. We need to connect with people who can offer real-world opportunities. Megan listened intently, her eyes filled with understanding. I think that's a great idea. But it's going to take a lot of work to get there. You're asking a lot of people to invest in something that's still relatively new. I know, Liam said, his voice firm. But if we can't provide kids with the skills they need to succeed in the real world, we're not truly giving them a chance. We're just offering them an education and hoping for the best. I want to give them more than that. Megan smiled, placing a hand on Liam's shoulder. You've always had big dreams. But I believe in you, Liam. You've done so much already. Just remember, you don't have to do it all alone. Liam set out on his new mission with a renewed sense of purpose. He spoke with business owners, education leaders, and nonprofits, sharing his vision for a future where young people weren't just handed a degree, they were given the tools, experience, and connections they needed to thrive in the world. Slowly, but surely, his plan started to take shape. More and more people began to see the value in what he was proposing. They believed in the idea of creating opportunities, not just scholarships. Over the next few months, Liam formed several key partnerships. He worked with local businesses to create apprenticeship programs for students in fields like technology, healthcare, construction, and the arts. He also partnered with vocational schools and universities to offer specialized training for students who wanted to pursue careers in trades or other hands-on fields. And through it all, Liam kept Keanu's memory at the forefront of everything. The scholarship had always been about more than just giving money, it was about paying forward the kindness that had been shown to him. Keanu's actions, his selflessness and courage, were the foundation of the entire initiative. Everything Liam did, every decision he made, was guided by the lessons Keanu had taught him. 1 year later, Liam stood at the front of a large auditorium, nervously adjusting his tie. Today was a milestone. the first ever graduation ceremony for students who had benefited from the expanded scholarship fund. These weren't just recipients of financial aid, they were students who had gone through internships, received mentorship, and gained real-world experience in their chosen fields. Liam scanned the room, feeling a mix of pride and anxiety. He had worked so hard to make this day possible, and now that it was finally here, he couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder. These students, who had once faced impossible odds, were now standing on the threshold of something great. They had all earned their success, and he had helped make that possible. He stepped up to the podium, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Today, we're celebrating more than just academic achievement. We're celebrating resilience, dedication, and the power of community. These students have faced obstacles that many of us could never imagine, but they've pushed through, they've grown, and they're ready to step into the world with the knowledge and experience they need to succeed. Liam looked out at the sea of faces, smiling at the graduates who had worked so hard to get here. They had come from different backgrounds with different stories, but they all shared one thing in common. They had been given a chance. A chance to prove themselves. A chance to create a future for themselves and their families. I want to thank each and every one of you for your hard work, Liam continued. And I want to thank the mentors, the businesses, and the organizations who have believed in you. Without them, none of this would be possible. But most of all, I want to thank Keanu Reeves, whose legacy lives on in each and every one of you. He showed us that sometimes, all it takes is one person's courage to change the world. And that's exactly what you're all doing. The crowd erupted into applause, and Liam felt his heart swell with pride. He had done it. He had turned his vision into a reality. The scholarship was no longer just a memory of a tragic event. It had become a movement, a force for change that would continue to grow, touching lives and shaping futures for generations to come. As the graduates filed onto the stage to accept their diplomas, Liam's eyes followed them, a deep sense of satisfaction and hope filling his heart. Keanu had given him the courage to take that first step, and now, through this scholarship, that courage was spreading, changing lives, and creating something that would endure long after he was gone.